Hi, it's Dr. Steve from Misericordia University, and welcome to our online class. As we are rounding out our time in Excel, let's look at part 2 of teaching with Excel. Let's consider how we can teach with and how we can even change lives with spreadsheets. Let's review the basic Excel skills and show how you can put them into practical use, and we're going to look at the following 2 files and 3 tabs on one of those files. We'll look at application various and application healthy eating. From the resources folder that I created on Blackboard, I've opened up the file called applications various. Now, I do have a number of applications in here on different tabs, but we're going to focus on 3 of them in particular. The first one is pretest. So I've clicked on that first tab underneath called pretest. In fields, and especially in student teaching and in your career, you're going to be asked at different times to chart the pretest and post-test scores for your students. In other words, before you start teaching, let's test the students to see what they know already, and then after you teach something, then let's do a test at the end and let's chart the difference. Here's how we would do that using Excel. And Excel makes it really easy for us. So first of all, here's the pretest. We would expect that the post-test ideally would be a little higher. So this will be the higher number ideally, but maybe not in all cases. So I'm going to do a very simple mathematical formula here. I'm going to say equals. I'm going to click on the first post-test score minus, and I'm going to click on the pretest. So equals, which we have to use to start any formula in Excel. And so equals, click on the post-test minus the pretest, and I'm going to hit enter. And there it is. Now at this point, if I wanted to make this look a little different or stand out, I could always change the background color, or I could change the color of the font if I chose. In this case, I'm not going to do either. I'm going to grab this little fill handle in the lower right-hand corner of that first cell, and I'm going to do a smart copy. Now, as I look at this, I can now visually see through numbers that majority of students did increase their score. In fact, some of them quite a bit. Here's one student who did not have any increase or decrease, and here's one student who did decrease a little bit. Now, from a teaching point of view, we would have to see what's going on with that particular student. Was that student absent during this time? Is this student experiencing some kinds of difficulties or problems in life or in the classroom or with other students? Something is causing that to happen. All right, so we've done a simple spreadsheet. Now, let's go and let's chart this. Notice all the data are contiguous, everything's touching, so that's going to work out well. I'm going to highlight these 2. Now, the reason why I'm not going to highlight the third one, when I look at the numbers here, 75, 80, and 5, if I have 3 bars, that third bar it's going to be 5. It's going to be so low, you're not even really going to even notice it on the chart. So to highlight the entire area like this would not make sense, because this last bar would be so small that it would not provide any meaningful data. So let me highlight all of this material, go up to Insert, and I'll choose a chart type. And I could take the time to, I'll just scroll this down a little bit, I could take the time to put a chart title in here. I could change the formatting of the chart area, and I could do things of that nature. But one of the most important things, those are all optional. The most important things I have to do is, these are grades, and they are going from 0 to 100. Take a look at that axis. Look at that. There's 100, but it's now going up to 120. Now that's going to be a misnomer. It's going to be misguiding information. It looks like no student has hit the high mark here, or a perfect score of 100. So let me right-click over this axis, and I'm going to say Format Axis. And when this appears, I'm going to go over and say, let's make sure that the maximum here is not auto, because that's not working properly at this point. It's giving us the misnomer, 100. So when I look at this now, 0 to 100, okay, now I get a much clearer idea of how the students are really performing. And if I wanted to, I could go in and I could get averages here. So notice all these things that we've looked at. I'm going to do an average while I'm speaking. I'm going to look for average. I'm going to highlight. Notice all of these things, these different skills that we have highlighted, are skills that you can really and truly put into practice. I'm now going to drag this across. Again, if I wanted to, I could format these. So I'm going to do a quick format cells, because I don't like those decimal places the way they're looking. I'm going to go to 1 decimal place for everything. And I could do a format cells, or I could just go behind this, right on in the ribbon here, and grab a color. So I can see that on average, students definitely, on average, did better. But average isn't ideally what we're going to look at. We're going to look at individual students, and here we can see how students have performed individually and use that to help us reach our students better. In this file, I'm going to click on the second tab on the bottom, Large Numbers. How large is 1,000,000 or 1,000,000,000? Many times when we hear, and we as adults and teachers as well as students, when we hear these large numbers, we're not quite sure what they truly mean. So let's use a spreadsheet to help make these numbers more understandable. Let's do that in this exercise by looking at how long you've been alive. So in this cell, I'm going to put an age. So I'm going to say age 20 for now, but I can go in and change that. So I'll look at the average age of our student in our class. How many days are in a year? Because we're looking at 20, that's 20 years. Watch how complex this will get, but look how simple it will be to actually create. Equals, I'm going to click on this cell and say that times 365 will give us 20 years times 365 is the number of days I've been alive. How many hours in a day? Well, it's 24, so I can do equals. Click on the number of days times 24. That's how many hours I've been alive if I'm 20 years old. How many minutes in an hour? Of course, that's 60 equals 60 times the number of hours. Now, I'll do it one more time. 60 equals 60 times the number of minutes, and that will give me the number of seconds. Now, let's take a better look at this. Having created this spreadsheet, if you were 20 years old, you've only been alive 7,000 days. Wouldn't it seem like it would be a lot larger than that? Now, you have been alive over 500,000 seconds. Will you ever hit 1,000,000? Will you ever hit 1,000,000,000? This is now how we can play what-if calculations with our students. One more thing, if I'm going to use this with my students, I don't want them to mess up these calculations in here. Let me go in and I'm going to right-click on this cell and say Format Cells to make it practical, protection, everything's locked. I'm going to unlock that one. And I'm going to go up to the top, to the Review tab, and I'm going to say Protect this sheet. I don't select anything here, I don't put any passwords in, I just say OK. This is now protected, and I can tell because up here it says Unprotect Sheet now. So having done this, let's play some what-if calculations. How about if you reach the age, or I'm saying, yeah, when you reach the age of, let's say, 40. Okay, you're now over 1 billion seconds, but 14,000 days. But if you reach a retirement age of, say, 65, and many teachers will retire earlier than that, and some teachers will hang in a little bit longer in their job because they love the students so much. If you hit age 65, look at that, only 23,000, almost 24,000 days. All right, what happens if you hit 100? 36,000 days. Boy, it makes life seem very short, doesn't it? But look at big numbers. When we see these numbers, if we talk about maybe one airplane that is going to be built by the or for the Pentagon by Boeing, and maybe it's $3 billion. When we look at a number like that, and some people look and say, "Oh, it's only only 3 billion." What does 3 billion mean? Compare it in seconds for 100 years of age. 3 billion is a very big number. Notice how spreadsheets can help you understand something in a whole different way. I've now clicked into the last tab on the bottom. It's called Smoking. Let's see how you could use spreadsheets in the classroom to literally change, and in this case, maybe even save lives. You probably know that smoking is one of my pet peeves. It's one of my platforms. I always say, don't smoke because you will die. And you certainly will, and a lot sooner and in a bad way. So let's take a look at this. I've already created this application, and I left a few blanks here so we can fill this in to show you that the math is very simple. Notice I already created the minutes, days, and hours piece over here using the math that we already talked about. Go over here and see how many packs per day is someone going to smoke. Now, if we're talking about a teenager, we might be looking at maybe 1 pack per day. And here's the piece that gets significant. How many years is someone going to smoke? When someone starts smoking, which by the way, there's research coming out now about vaping, saying that it's not much safer, if at all safer, than smoking. Teenagers don't think about how many years will they smoke, because that is the variable that really affects your life. So let's take a look at this. If I plug in, just for the sake of math right now, if I put 1 in here, notice 1 times 365 days is 365 packs of cigarettes per year. And if someone smokes for 5 years, they would smoke a total of 1,800 packs of cigarettes. Okay, whatever number is here, I'd like that to appear up here in this blue cell. Okay, that's going to be very easy to do. I'm just going to say equals, and I'm going to click on this cell. So a cell reference, look at that. Immediately everything comes to life because it's based on this cell over down here. Okay, now let's look at things in 2 different ways here. Number 1, let's take a look at how much time will smoking cut off a person's life. According to the American Heart Association, they say that every cigarette smoke cuts off approximately 5 and at least 5 minutes of life out of your lifetime. Now, when we're talking with our students, with teenagers or very young adults, that's not going to sound like a whole lot. If you have somebody in your life who smokes, maybe you want to share, if they're an older person, maybe you want to share this piece with them. 5 years of smoking is cutting off about half of a year. Now realize, if someone starts in their teenage years, say they start even by age 20, let's say 15 in this case, because we're talking about our school students. So 25, they're age 35, 45, 55, before they even get ready to retire, and if they're still in reasonably good health, they will have smoked for 40 years, just that easily. Look how many cigarettes they've smoked. Packs and total cigarettes. And look at the number of years. Now, for a person who's a little bit older, cutting off almost 4 years of their life is very significant. But to younger people, such as my student audience, the cost is going to be very significant. So let me go out on Google, and I searched, and as of the taping of this video, Google is estimating that a cost of a pack of cigarettes in Pennsylvania right now, the 7th highest state in terms of cost, because of the taxes, is $8.27. So I'm going to go back here, and I'm going to plug in $8.27. Now, take a look at that. If you're smoking for 40 years, 1 pack per day, we're talking about a house here, $120,000 that you will have spent. Now, in reality, when someone starts as a teenager, they may start with 1 pack a day, but chances are they may go in and do much more than that. So let me plug in 2 packs a day for 40 years. If we look at when a typical person retires, we're going to put 50 years in here. Started as a teenager, by 65, they're retiring from a job. $300,000. Now, there's my airplane. There's a couple cars and a boat, or there's one grand house right there. You can use spreadsheets to change lives, and it doesn't take a whole lot of math skills to do that. And the other cool thing here is, as a teacher, you don't have to preach these lessons to your students. Your parents many times tried to tell you different things. Did you always listen? Probably not. In most cases, were they pretty on target with what they were saying to you? Yep, pretty much they were. It's much more effective in education if, instead of preaching to students, we give them technological tools or other types of tools. But again, with technology, we can speed up time here. We can take them through their whole lifetime and show them how much money they will lose and how much of their years of their life will be cut off before they ever even get involved in this type of activity. Use spreadsheets, change lives. As we're considering how we can use technology, and in this case specifically spreadsheets, to change students' lives, I've just opened up the spreadsheet called Application Healthy Eating. So let's take a look at this. On the first tab, I give a little information, a little background. In our society today, we know that many people are overeating, and we have a more sedentary lifestyle, and all of that is leading to obesity, an overall lack of energy, and also an ability to suffer from different diseases. So let's help our students better analyzing their eating habits. Warning, this part of the lesson may help change your life as well. I've got several tabs down here. I'm going to click into the second one, and I've already filled out some of this information. I went online, and I went to I'm going to say a burger place, a popular burger place. I'm taking all of the names off here. So I started by going in, this would be a great activity for you to do with your students, and ask them to list what they usually get to eat in one of their favorite fast food restaurants. And then focus on deriving certain numbers in terms of the menus of these places. So I've chosen here to focus on calories, on grams of fat, and also on milligrams of sodium. So you can see the spreadsheet is very simple, just a matter of typing in some items. Here you can see a typical meal that someone could eat at a burger place. And I went online to find out what are the number of calories. And I simply typed them in. Down here, this is just an equal sum. Or I could have added up manually by doing a formula. Now, if I want to, I can highlight these cells, because I don't see a comma coming in here. I can say Format Cells, Number, and I can say this is just a regular number. I don't care about decimal places. I'll put that to 0. But I'm going to use the thousand separator, which is the comma. Now, after the students do this, and the ideal here is for the teacher to introduce the task, to let the students see and access the spreadsheet, and then let them talk and interact as they complete the spreadsheet. in my simulated meal here, and these are real numbers, the totals came out for calories almost 1,900 calories, fat 78 grams, and over 2,000 milligrams of sodium. Okay, well, those are numbers. What do they mean? So I have a tab that I call the RDA, the Recommended Daily Allowance by our government, as suggested by our government. What's the RDA for calories? Depending on lifestyle and age and activity level and so on, but on average about 2,000 calories per person per day. Fat, 24 grams. Sodium, saying about 2.5 grams or 2,400 milligrams per day. And we also have sugar. Now this means don't go above this. Now let me take a look at the meal analysis. I've almost hit the entire calorie intake, the caloric intake, for an entire day in one meal. You know, when you go to a fast food restaurant, many times you're hungry not too long after. That's almost a whole day's allowance right there. Fat, 78. The RDA said 24. Ooh, that's a whole lot more than I should be getting. Sodium, 2,100. Here they're saying 2,100, sorry, RDA, here we go. Sodium 2,400 for the entire day. Now, by the way, that's sodium. I chose large fries, and I didn't put any salt on them. But you know, you're probably going to be tempted to put salt, so this number is probably going to go up. So in one meal, we have come close to or exceeded the recommended daily allowance. I was just saying earlier, different folks will try to tell you and to teach you and sometimes preach at you about some of these different lifestyle things that you probably should not engage in, you should be more mindful of. In this case, present the spreadsheet to the students, give some background, give them the task, let them collaborate and talk, and then let's start by looking at what are some norms that we should not be going above. That's the start of a very good unit. Now, in addition to that, we can then, after we get their attention with this and show them the problem, and they discover it, we could then say, let's go back to that same restaurant, and in the burger place, could you choose a healthy meal? What could you get that's healthy there? Again, these are starters for discussion and a lot of deep learning that's going to take place here. So I hope you enjoyed looking at spreadsheets and how we could use them practically in the classroom to teach and maybe even to change or save lives. I hope you enjoyed this lesson. I look forward to seeing you at our next online class.